Fellas, today we're going to be going over all the random rolls for Season of the Seraph. Now, I do want to preface this video by saying, first and foremost, currently, we do not have any new exotic armors for this season. I have looked. I thought my eyes were deceiving me. I was like, okay, maybe the collections just didn't have them. Let me go look on Light GG. Nope, literally no new exotic armors. The good thing is we do have a number of weapons this season, all with some fantastic rolls. First, let's start with our exotic weapons. Now, we actually have three. One's going to be tied to an exotic quest. We'll have a detailed guide on that. The other one's going to be tied to the dungeon. So the only one available to us right now is the seasonal exotic called the Manticore. This is a void energy submachine gun. We actually reviewed it already. Feel free to check that one out. But a really cool weapon here, guys, as it allows you to essentially suspend yourself in air. Granted, not the wisest thing to do in PvE or in PvP, especially with airborne effectiveness, considering that's going to get buffed in the future for primary weapons. This SMG is only going to get better. On top of that, its catalyst actually allows you to have increased damage resistance while landing final blows in the air. So a lot of things really leaning into this weapon, taken to the air. And again, the buff here inside of PvE is like 40%, and inside of PvP, it's like 18 to 22%. So pretty substantial. Either way it goes, if you're looking at a more detailed review on this weapon, including damage fall off, TTK values, all that good stuff, feel free to check out our review. Now, next on the list is Lodbrok-C. I feel like I'm killing that name. This is a Hake kinetic auto rifle that shoots at 360 rounds per minute. Now, it is a high impact frame. Bungie recently just buffed these. Stated in the most recent sandbox update, high impact frames intrinsic perk now allows a very small amount of movement instead of turning off with any movement. Okay, so this is actually a big deal. High impacts essentially allows you to have like pseudo firmly planted. It stays slow firing, high damage, but the weapon is more accurate when stationary, moving slowly and aiming down sights. In the past, and I often thought this, I was like, yo, like this is a good perk, but it wants me to stand completely still. That has been buffed, which means you can actually move a little more with these different archetypes of high impacts. And that applies pulse rifles. It applies here to these auto rifles, the scout rifles, etc. Now, this being a Hake weapon, it also comes with the origin trait Hake breach armaments, where the weapon essentially deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. And that's like a 15% buff against vehicles and constructs, and a 30% buff against turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. Matter of fact, if you're looking to ever counter stasis inside of PvP, just pull out a Hake weapon. Or Cerberus, surprisingly. Now, its perk rolls are pretty interesting here, guys. You've probably seen these new traits. We have Cascade Point. Final blows or sustained precision hits with another weapon increases this weapon's rate of fire for a short duration. That's an interesting one. Sustained precision hits with another weapon might be something a little more difficult to do inside of like PvP, but depending on how fast it actually increases the weapon's fire rate here, we could really be breaking some TTK values. By the way, this weapon does drop from the gunsmith. We will be trying to get different rolls of all of these guns with all of these new traits and testing them out immediately. The other one is Target Lock. This is also a new trait. It says that damage increases the longer this weapon remains on target. Almost sounds like box breathing, but you normally see box breathing on like precision-based weapons and not an auto rifle. Now, depending on how much it actually increases our damage, and maybe if we pair it with things like Actium War Rig, this may actually be the play on this gun for like DPS. Now, the rolls that I'm going to be looking for are probably going to be a combination of either like Perpetual Motion, Kill Clip. Those two synergize really nicely together. You also have Dynamic Sway Reduction. Tap the Trigger is also present on this gun. Keep in mind though, Kill Clip just got a nerf. I know Light GG is still saying a 33% buff, but at least base on update 6.3.0, Kill Clip is only doing 25% more damage, which would actually increase our damage here on Lodbrok from 35 per crit to 43.75 per crit. Now, that's still really good and doesn't really mess with the TTK values, although less forgiving now with it not being 33%. But base time to kill value on this auto rifle is 0.83 seconds. With Kill Clip though, and that 25% buff this season, that drops down to a 0.67 time to kill value. However, on Max Resilience Guardians, 4 crits, 1 body. Now, for PvE, again, depending on how much Target Lock is actually increasing our damage, Target Lock plus 4 times the charm, that's the way, man. But you also have Osmosis. And I know no one really goes crazy over Osmosis, but in burn environments, Osmosis and Adrenaline Junkie seems like a no-brainer combo. And if you did want to rock that, you can always rock Demolitionist with Adrenaline Junkie. Now, as far as the mag perks go, I think Armor Piercing Rounds is really good on this auto rifle, especially when we have things like Anti-Barrier Auto Rifle. Granted, I know we don't have that right now, but when that does come, Armor Piercing Rounds does increase damage to barrier champions. Outside of that though, a mag perk is just fine. Anything that's buffing that mag. And for PvP, I like Ricochet rounds or high caliber rounds. Either of those. Again, we'll be checking this auto rifle out as soon as possible. Drops from the gunsmith, guys, so good luck getting this one. Moving on, we have Aurvandil FR6. By the way, I just looked up the pronunciation for that fusion rifle, and Google says I'm right. Aurvandil. This is a stasis fusion rifle and the high impact frame archetype, which means the buff that other high impacts received is also present here on these fusion rifles. I know they have a slow charge rate, but now might actually be the time to use it. Very good rolls on this thing, guys. I want you to get excited about this one. It's an Amalon fusion rifle, meaning it has increased stability on the top end of that magazine, which positions it well inside of PvP. And I'm already looking here at that elemental capacitor roll with firmly planted. We're talking a combination, especially if you're rocking like Void, having a very healthy stability stat with a decent range stat, and of course firmly planted, granting that increased accuracy while crouched. That in combination with high impact frame intrinsic accuracy, this looks to be pretty nutty, guys. Now the big takeaway is the presence of reconstruction. Reconstruction, normally on only deep stone weapons, is present on this fusion rifle, essentially stating that the weapon slowly reloads itself over time up to double capacity. Now that seems like a beautiful combination perk with none other than Chill Clip, which states that direct hits with the top half of the magazine causes a detonation that slows nearby targets. Chill Clip is a very good trait, guys. So you can imagine combining this with reconstruction, literally increasing that mag size, always proccing Chill Clip until you get down to 50% of the base magazine, and then reloading, which by the way, Amalon Fluid Dynamics offers increased reload speed for that top half of the magazine. Now, if you didn't want to rock reconstruction, other great options include Subsistence, which is present on this thing, Slime Ways, and by the way, if you didn't want to rock Chill Clip, dude, Golden Tricorn is also on this thing. Now, I will say Golden Tricorn is a little easier to proc on other subclasses. This is a stasis weapon, and in order to get the full stack of 50% increase there in damage for 10 seconds, while the Golden Tricorn buff is active, grenade or melee kills of the same damage type increases its damage and duration. So you would have to get either a stasis grenade kill or melee kill. And that is kind of difficult considering most of the stasis grenades are meant for utility. It's meant for slowing. We have to see exactly how this works. Like, I'm curious to know how this works with like stasis turrets. Does this proc whenever it just freezes opponents and say I kill them with a weapon? Or am I gonna have to rely purely on my melees in order to get the benefit here? Either way it goes, this is a very interesting fusion rifle. It's dropping from the gunsmith, and I'm excited to try it out in both PvE and PvP. Next on our list is Rose. Now, Rose is the competitive reward for this season. Again, comp got a rework. We put out a guide on comp and how to progress through that playlist. This is an interesting hand cannon because it is the first of its kind. It's an actual hybrid. It shoots like a 140, but it's still a lightweight frame, meaning you have superb handling, you still move faster while the weapon is equipped. But let me just say this hand cannon has it all. Rangefinder, a payload perk, perpetual motion, moving targets, rapid hit, Eye of the Storm. Everything on this thing is sexy. And when you actually look at like high range on this hand cannon, say you did like Hammerforged rifling, accurized rounds, perpetual motion, rangefinder with a range masterwork, you're looking at over 35 meters of range with this bad baby. And I really like that roll for consistency. But even if you didn't want to roll rangefinder, you have things like explosive payload, Eye of the Storm, which greatly benefits you as the gunfight goes on, opening shot, which increases that accuracy and range on that first shot. I think this is going to be a hand cannon that's going to dominate within its intended range. And even though you have hand cannons like Allstringer with enhanced perks and the ability to roll rangefinder or palindrome or even Fatebringer out there, Rose, I'm telling you, has a level of consistency that other hand cannons have a hard time matching. Once this hand cannon is starting to drop with random rolls, you guys are going to see how powerful this thing is. So again, guys, if you're interested in seeing how to get this hand cannon, what are the steps involved with it, we'll link our competitive guide down below. Moving on, we have Disparity. Now, guys, I've already been getting killed by this thing, man. This is an aggressive burst stasis pulse rifle. Now, it's been a hot minute since we've actually had one of these 4-round burst pulse rifles hit us, but this is one of the new seasonal weapons, which means, yes, it is a craftable weapon. Now, we have a Season of the Seraph guide if you're interested in how to farm for these guns. I'm being told that deep sights in general are dropping more frequently than what they did in Season of the Plunder. A lot of people got really fatigued with that, so that's a good thing. Granted, RNG is still fickle no matter what. With that being said, though, with it being a new season, it also has a new origin trait called Ambush. This actually improves range, handling, and damage against combatants during the opening moments of an engagement. Now, we have to actually see if Ambush is proccing inside of PvP. Good chance that it's not, hence the term combatants. There have been times that Bungie has merged the two, as in sometimes that buff actually works inside of PvP despite it clearly saying combatants. That's normally a PvE term. I wouldn't see this working inside of PvP, but I have been getting killed a lot by this pulse rifle and not even the craftable rolls yet. So that gives you some indication of how good the base version of this gun already is. Now, this is also a Hake weapon, so you still get the Hake Breach armament perk on this thing. So depending on what you're dealing damage to, swapping between both of those origin traits might be a good option for you. But I will say Ambush is positioned really well this season because we actually have an artifact mod aiding Ambush. With that being said, though, let's look at these trait combinations. And the beautiful thing about this, guys, they're enhanced. Right off the bat, I'm sure you've already seen it. Desperado. Yeah? Oh, I want this thing so bad. Again, reloading after a precision final blow increases your rate of fire, but the enhanced version is for an improved duration. Now, we've been seeing Bungie lean away from this. Originally, Desperado was only present on high impacts, and then last season, they actually put it on an adaptive called Yesteryear, which was the Gambit Pulse Rifle. This season, they're throwing it on an aggressive. Guys, I cannot wait to try this one out. The other one is actually Headseeker. Now, I know no one has ever really jumped up and said Headseeker was meta, but listed in 6.3.0, Headseeker states that body shots now increase your precision multiplier and increases aim assist. In additional body shots, resets the timer. It has a 0.55 second base timer, and body shots while this perk is active will reset the timer. So the main takeaway is that Headseeker is performing better, both with the increased body shot damage and, more importantly, the increased aim assist. Now, base Headseeker pretty much states what Headseeker already does, but it states that body shots landed while the perk is active refreshes the time. That's interesting because in the patch notes, Headseeker is already supposed to be doing that. So we need to actually test things out. I will say though, Headseeker on high impacts is performing very, very well. If you have a messenger right now with Headseeker, especially with high impacts all getting a buff to its accuracy, break it out. Try it out, guys. Other roles on this thing though include Kill Clip, Rapid Hit, great combinations there. You do have Eye of the Storm here. I would say like Headseeker, Moving Target, or Headseeker and Rapid Hit are the trait combinations I'm going to be going for. If not that, maybe Heating Up. And Heating Up is such a good trait. It can literally flow with everything here, especially the enhanced version since it has longer duration. So you can pair it with Kill Clip, you can pair it with Desperado, or depending on how well Headseeker is actually performing, you can use Headseeker. But for PvE, I think Frenzy Outlaw is definitely a great option. You also have Headstone on this gun, and of course, One for All. Now, Frenzy is actually a 15% increase in damage, whereas One for All is a 35% increase in damage. The difference is you have to hit 3 separate opponents, which is honestly not that difficult on a pulse rifle because you kind of like spread the burst out. And on top of that, the enhanced version of One for All lasts longer. So I actually want to see the combination of like One for All with Ambush together and a new artifact mod with, say, Outlaw and a magazine boosting perk. Next, we have Stay Frosty. This is a stasis pulse rifle, and this is a lightweight frame pulse. Now, it actually will be dropping next week with the Dawning event, which is essentially the Christmas event. And being a Dawning weapon, it has a different origin trait called Dawning Surprise. Rapidly defeating targets awards a Dawning gift. Defeated powerful targets counts as more than one. Now, obviously, this is more tied to the Dawning event. I'm pretty sure most of us for the rest of the year will just be using Amalon Fluid Dynamics, but I'm actually curious to see how Dawning Surprise works. Now, this weapon also comes with a new origin trait called Offhand Strike. Final blows grant additional weapon range, stability, and accuracy when firing from the hip for a short duration. Not really something you want on a pulse rifle. I don't know many of us that are running around and last wording with our pulse, but hey, maybe that's your playstyle. One trait I do want to point out is Encore. Encore actually got a rework in this sandbox. Essentially, final blows will now grant stacks of Encore, and these stacks grant increased stability, range, and accuracy. And these are some pretty ginormous stacks, like +8 stability, +5 range, 1.25% accuracy per stack, and body shot final blows grant 1 stack, precision final blows grant 2 stacks, with a maximum of 4 stacks. It lasts for 7 seconds, and overall, this is a heck of a lot better than what the way Encore used to work before. It was just too confusing. So I'm actually saying that Encore, in combination with perhaps Headseeker, might actually be really, really good on this thing. You also have Encore and Desperado. Again, Bungie's literally giving us Desperado on every archetype of pulse. Other trait combinations include Tunnel Vision and Kill Clip. I know that seems like a no-brainer, but the beautiful thing about Tunnel Vision and Kill Clip is that you can continually keep re-procking these. No longer do you have to juggle the proc time on this. You don't have to wait for it to run out to reload or swap to another weapon and swap back. Yes, Kill Clip got a nerf, but its overall buff is in its consistency when procking this perk. For PvE though, Headstone is also present on this gun. Golden Tricorn is also here. And again, similar to what we mentioned earlier with our Stasis Fusion Rifle, we just got to see how often we can proc Golden Tricorn. It is a powerful perk though, but Golden Tricorn and well-rounded together, that's a great trait combination. Overall, lightweights are actually really good. I think BXR is definitely the king of lightweights, especially considering that you can craft that pulse rifle, but I'm very interested if Stay Frosty can actually hold its own against the BXR. Moving on, we have the return of Hung Jury. Now, not only has Hung Jury returned, it actually got a new fresh coat of paint on the Adept version. That's right, fellas. It's gold. Yeah? Reissue loot? But hey, at least it looks better, right? Now, there's gonna be 3 different origin traits you can get on this gun, considering it's gonna be dropping from Nightfalls and, of course, Grandmaster Nightfalls, Stunning Recovery, which is gonna be gauged at Champions, Vanguard Vindication, and Amalon Fluid Dynamics. Now, the big takeaway here for Hung Jury is box breathing will no longer be able to 3-tap inside of Crucible, which pretty much kills all of our box breathing rolls. On hung jury. It was a beautiful thing, guys, but Bungie in the most recent sandbox patch note did nerf box breathing specifically on scout rifles, which is definitely targeting hung jury here. With that being said though, what is the best combo inside of PvP? Well, surplus and explosive payload looks like a fantastic combination. Another combination that I'm actually interested in trying is Adagio. Now, Adagio will clearly allow this weapon to 3-tap. Matter of fact, not only will it 3-tap, you'll actually be able to 2-crit one body with Adagio. It does, however, drop that rate of fire. Now, depending on how much it actually drops that rate of fire, that's going to be the kicker, right? But if it's a 15% drop there, that pretty much puts it in line with other 150 round per minute scout rifles. So it's still going to be a 0.8 second time to kill value, which is an increase over its base precision TTK of 1 second. With that being said though, what it does possess is again the ability to 2-crit one body, which is better than 150 round per minute scouts. Still requires you to get a kill. All I'm saying is that Adagio with either rapid hit or surplus inside of PvP may actually be the play. But Cross, what about Gutshot Straight? Didn't it just get a buff? Only for auto rifles, guys, not for anything else. Gutshot Straight is increasing body shot damage from 10% to now 20%, but only applicable to auto rifles. Now for PvE, obviously explosive payload subsistence, fantastic. I do want to mention shoot to loot is actually really good, especially if you're cheesing Nightfalls and you don't want to have to leave a cheese spot. I always suggest having at least one weapon with shoot to loot. Frenzy is also present on this thing. Now I feel like either Frenzy, subsistence, explosive payload subsistence with the magazine boosting perk. And if you like explosions, obviously Firefly is the way to go. Side note, Firefly actually used to proc Warmind cells. Rest in peace, Warmind cells though. Next weapon is the Jararaka 3SR. This is a Vice rapid fire scout rifle, meaning it shoots at 260 rounds per minute. We actually don't have many of these, but they've been slowly making a return. This bad baby is dropping from the gunsmith, and I'm pretty sure most of us are familiar with contingency plan. Now, I personally love this archetype. Trait combinations that are already jumping out to me: tunnel vision, kill clip, rapid hit, kill clip, or even perpetual motion with kill clip. And even with post nerf kill clip, you're still gonna be able to easily 3-crit one body guardians with Jararaka. I just want to say it so fast, right? Jararaka. Now, being a Vice weapon, it of course comes with Vice Stinger. Damaging an enemy with this weapon has a small chance to reload the magazine and increases movement speed while aiming down sights. This is really nice, especially when you pair it with things like 4 times the charm. You feel like you have a weapon that's constantly auto reloading. That combination with Headstone on this thing, considering it's a stasis weapon, is deadly. Another trait combination is of course Focus Fury. After scoring 50% of the magazine, as precision hits, you get 20% increase in damage for 11 seconds. Now, normally I don't like this trait. I have to see exactly how it actually works with 4 times the charm and of course Vice Stinger. But if the synergy is good there, that seems like a great option to consistently keep giving yourself your ammo back and auto reloading your weapon. Outside of that, Golden Tricorn is also present on this gun. But for PvP, I definitely advise high caliber rounds, perpetual motion, and probably that kill clip roll. Most of these rapid fires have pretty poor handling, but that's where perpetual motion comes into play. Now, I also advise to use Arrowhead Break on the scout rifle. That'll kick our recoil direction up to 87. Also, Arrowhead Break increases our handling. This is going to make the weapon feel a lot more consistent. Next, we have Cold Front with a new paint job. Bungie's like, hey, you ready to get this weapon yet again for the 4th year in a row? But new paint job, baby. Now, it too comes with the Dawning Surprise Origin trait, and this is an aggressive frame kinetic submachine gun. Interesting trait combinations this year, one being Rangefinder. That's right, Rangefinder is present on this thing. And not only Rangefinder and tap the trigger. Normally, this is like a weapon trait combination that's in the same columns. Like normally you have to choose either tap the trigger or Rangefinder. So the fact that it's present right here together, oh yeah, I'm intrigued. Now, if you were to like get a very high range roll on this weapon, Rangefinder, Accuraz rounds, Hammer Forge with the range masterwork, you're looking at about 22.8 meters, which is healthy. Not the furthest reaching SMG, but still good range. But let's take a quick look at some of the other traits on this gun. One being Cascade Point. Again, we brought it up earlier, where final blows or sustained precision hits with another weapon increases this weapon's rate of fire for a short duration. Now, this actually may be interesting. I like to rock a sniper rifle with an SMG. So if you start off with like a sniper rifle kill, swap over to this SMG, depending on that increase in rate of fire, this actually may be substantial enough to choose over other traits in this final column. Now, for PvE, this is a Hake weapon. So you definitely want to roll that Hake Breach Origin trait. But you have Frenzy on this thing, Frenzy Subsistence, Rampage Subsistence, One for All and Stats for All. Combine that with a magazine boosting perk, you'll be doing really well. Now, the other trait that I want to bring up is actually Air Assault. Stated in the most recent patch, Air Assault grants a stacking bonus to airborne effectiveness and a maximum of 2 stacks, 1 per final blow, 2 per airborne final blow. Each stack actually grants you plus 30 airborne effectiveness. Now listen, I don't like to take to the air, especially with airborne effectiveness in the game right now, but this actually may be a good option for you, especially if you've got like a shotgun rushing you. And yes, shotguns are performing in the sandbox. Some of us have to take to the air to get away from them. Air Assault Assault could really come in clutch there. On top of that, it gives you base plus 10 airborne effectiveness, and this ramps up as your health gets lower. Personally, I actually kept 2 different cold fronts, both being a harmony roll, so that tells you how much I like the increase there in damage. Cascade Point actually performs very similar here, but again, we have to see what that rate of fire is. If it suddenly amps this thing up to like 1,000 rounds per minute, oh, well, cold front, here we come. Next, we have Prolonged Engagement. This is a Vice SMG, and it seems like we're getting a lot of Vice SMGs, right? Lightweight frame, 15 impact, very similar to the new exotic SMG that we just got as a seasonal weapon. But being a Vice SMG, it of course comes with the Vice Stinger origin trait. Now, this is a Vanguard related weapon, meaning it drops from Zavala, and it also comes with the origin trait Vanguard's Vindication. And as with all of these core playlist weapons, so many trait combinations. I mean, a ton. Now, we've already talked about Target Lock, which is one of the new traits where damage increases the longer this weapon remains on target. We also talked about Offhand Strike, where final blows grant additional weapon range, stability, and accuracy when firing from the hip. Perfect Float, though, is one that we have not seen until this weapon. It states that being in combat for a moderate time increases airborne effectiveness and reduces flinch until you're out of combat. Now, I have no idea how long that requires you. It's an interesting one. On top of that, is it really worth using over trait combinations that just requires you to conduct a gunfight? You've got Eye of the Storm on this thing, Dynamic Sway Reduction, both of which helps you during and mid gunfight. And then you have perks like Killing Wind or Heating Up that requires you to get a kill. And then on top of that, you also have Air Assault. So depending on how much it actually reduces flinch, this is kind of a head scratcher for me. I don't really know if Perfect Float is going to be the way. Granted, it seems like perfect synergy here is with it and Frenzy, as both of them require you to be in combat. Frenzy increasing your damage, Perfect Float increasing your airborne effectiveness and reducing your flinch. Don't know many PvE players though that are actually going to be taking advantage of that. Outside of that though, you do have Subsistence, One for All. Rangefinder is also on this gun. The new updated Encore is also present here. I actually think this SMG is going to give Funnel Web a run for its money. Granted, even a high range roll though on this SMG still comes in under 2 meters less than that of a high range roll on Funnel Web. Granted, that's in part due to the fact that the weapon's base range is just bad, which is why I like having Rangefinder on it. Might be necessary. Now, I am curious to see how it performs inside of PvE though, especially considering it's a stasis weapon, Headstone with Vice Stinger together, and Subsistence. Guys, with a good stasis build, this could be extremely deadly. Next, we have Dark Decider. This is actually the Iron Banner auto rifle for this season. I'm actually curious if this auto rifle is dropped for anyone at all, if you kept your bounties from last season. I'm pretty sure Bungie fixed that a long time ago, but you never know. But this is a rapid fire frame Vice auto rifle, and it's been a long time since we got a 720 auto. Now, being a rapid fire frame, you have deeper ammo reserves. Now, rapid fire's actually got a buff, at least for shotguns, and I'm wondering if this applies here to these auto rifles and other rapid fire frame archetypes. But essentially, the reload speed benefit now applies at all times instead of only when reloading from empty. Curious to see if Dark Decider is actually benefiting from this. Now, being an arc weapon, you probably see it right there, guys. That's right. It can roll with Bolt Shot. We're reloading this weapon after defeating a target overcharges this weapon for a short period of time, causing it to jolt on its next hit. You can imagine something like this proccing Vice Stinger pretty regularly, and you combine that with, say, Subsistence, and you're constantly reloading your weapon. Dragonfly is also present on this gun, as well as Golden Tricorn, and again, the Golden Tricorn well-rounded combo is a great combination. Now, Skulking Wolf got a buff a long time ago, and it states that while at low health, Guardian final blows of this weapon grant enhanced radar and remove you from opposing radar. It's pretty nice. It's applicable through all the PvP. Now, for PvP, you have Iron Reach present on this gun, which, yes, gives you roughly a 3-meter bump there in range. You also have Rangefinder, which doesn't give you a 3-meter buff. It's about 2.5 meters, or a little less than 2.5 meters, but it doesn't hurt your weapon's stability. Iron Reach gives you minus 30 stability. Now, you can offset this with Iron Grip, which gives you plus 20 stability, but minus 30 reload. Now, if rapid fire frames and its reload buff applies to all rapid fires and not just rapid fire shotguns, you may be able to get away with that abysmal reload speed with Iron Grip. At the same time, why not just rock Dynamic Sway and Rangefinder? You still got an auto rifle that with the right roll, like a Range Masterwork, Akaras rounds, and Arrowhead Break, because you're going to want to use Arrowhead Break with a counterbalance mod, because the recoil direction on this thing by default is abysmal. You can still reach up to 28 meters. I know, you guys are probably like, Cross, why not just use an SMG? The lines are definitely blurred. But keep in mind, rapid fires do have a good TTK value of 0.77 seconds. And I personally love using this archetype of auto rifles. I think they feel so good. So before you count it out, let's just see how it performs. Next, we have that sexy bow that we saw in the trailer, Tripwire Canary. This is an arc energy combat bow and the lightweight frame archetype. This is also one of the seasonal weapons. So everything here is craftable with enhanced perks. Now, this is also a Vice bow, which means it comes with the Vice Stinger origin trait. And again, other weapons reloads the magazine and increase movement speed speed, or at least has a chance of those things happening when you damage an enemy. Bows actually receive a faster draw speed. Now, will we use Vice Stinger over Ambush? I don't think so. I think this season we're probably going to be using Ambush with the new artifact mod. But let's take a look at a couple of these perks. One being Shot Swap. Final Blows build and store charge, which allows you to swap and stow this weapon at a faster rate. Now, for my dedicated PvP users that like to use bows, this could be an option for you. Bungie has nerfed the swap speed of our bows and other weapons. This is a way to actually accumulate those charges for that faster swap. So whether you're pairing this with like a hand cannon or something to get the cleanup shot or an SMG, this could be a good option for you. Granted, kind of defeats the purpose of swapping to another weapon for the cleanup because you're not actually getting final blows with this bow. But it does make us question, is it final blows with this weapon or with anything? Now, the enhanced version of this trait pretty much does the same exact thing, but states at an improved rate, so even faster swap and stow speed. Outside of that though, you've got Archer's Tempo and Frenzy. Holy hell, fellas, that's a fantastic combination. Both of those with the increased damage there from Ambush or even Vice Stinger is really, really good. And again, Archer's Tempo Enhance lasts longer, so it decreases that draw time with every precision hit for an even longer duration. And Frenzy also lasts longer while enhanced. Now, successful warm-up is also present on this bow, which I actually really like. You can imagine that with Archer's Tempo and Vice Stinger, we're at like hush levels of draw time. Now, what's also interesting, it's Dragonfly present on this weapon, and you can actually do Dragonfly with Frenzy. So not only are you getting the 15% buff there from Frenzy, but you're also getting the elemental explosions from Dragonfly. And if it's the enhanced version of Dragonfly, this increases reload speed. Overall, guys, there's a lot of great trait combinations here on this bow. I cannot wait to get the weapon pattern for it. Next, we have the return of a Glacioclasm, but of course, with a new paint job. Now, this is a high impact frame fusion rifle. So again, all the benefits that high impacts receive with the most recent buff, Glacioclasm here should be performing a lot better. Now, it is an anomalon weapon, so you do get that increase in stability at the top half of the magazine. Granted, inside of PvP, not really proccing that, right? You're starting off with 2 rounds. Donic Surprise is also present on this weapon, but let's take a quick look at the trait combinations. Under Pressure is always a must-have for PvP. Since you're rocking less than half the magazine by default with our ammo economy, Under Pressure is constantly being procced. Now, that is a great combination with high impact reserves, which again increases our damage at the bottom end of our magazine. Now, for the most part, high impacts can get the 3-bolt kill inside of PvP. What high impacts really does is that it extends that kill range, even in damage fall off territory with that bump there in damage. Now, we also have Kickstart on this gun. Kickstart with Under Pressure is also very good, especially on a high impact. You gain bonus damage and charge rate during a slide after sprinting for a short duration. Granted, I know this kind of messes with the high impact frame archetype, but if there is any archetype that does need a faster charge time, it's this one right here. And Glacioclasm with Kickstart would be very nasty. Now, for PvE, without a doubt, guys, Reservoir Burst with Slide Shot is like my go-to favorite combination. I've had it on the previous rolls. I love this. You can also do Subsistence with Reservoir Burst, but the reason why Slide Shot is so good is that you can consistently keep proccing it over and over again on a single target, whereas Subsistence requires you to get the kill. Outside of that, you also have Golden Tricorn on this weapon, so if you're rocking some sort of Void 3.0 build, taking advantage of your grenades and such, you could really be amplifying the damage here. But again, though, for me, Reservoir Burst is the go-to option for PvE, just simply for the Kabloomies and the explosions. Now, Eye of the Storm is also present on this, and the only reason why I bring up Eye of the Storm is because, again, the weapon becomes more accurate as your health gets lower. This is a very slow charge time fusion, so you can imagine just about every gunfight, if someone's in there peppering you with some sort of weapon, you're going to be proccing Eye of the Storm. That combination with Under Pressure, and I don't see how you can miss. Overall, guys, this weapon will be dropping from the Dawning event next week. I have always loved Glacioclasm. I'm excited to try out the new version of it. Moving on, we have Judgement of Kelgorath. Hope I'm saying that right. This is actually one of the Season Pass reward weapons. Yes, it is also craftable. Now, what's so interesting about this glaive is its archetype. Notice it says Aggressive Glaive. Hard-hitting, slow melee ranged polearm with a frontal shield. Essentially performs just like any other glaive, but its impact is 95. It's a meaty boy. Top of that, it's a Hake glaive. It also comes with ambush. So depending on what you're doing or who you're attacking, you can swap between either of those. Now, the trait combinations is also where this weapon gets very interesting. Number 1, Incandescent. And not just Incandescent, you can also get Enhanced Incandescent on a glaive. And by the way, for those that are wondering how glaives are performing this season, they are supposed to be overall more reliable in their hit detection. It also synergizes with armor pieces like Syntheseps, Wormguide Caress, and Winter's Guile, but their multipliers have been reduced by 25 to 30% against champions, mini bosses, and vehicles, but majors and minors are unchanged. Now, another trait on this weapon that's also new is Close to Melee, which states glaive projectile final blows improve glaive glaive melee damage, and glaive projectile melee damage extends the duration. Now, how much it actually improves it, I don't know. I know that the glaive melee damage inside of PvP was actually reduced from 75 to 67, so maybe this is going to make up for it. And again, being an aggressive glaive, we have to see exactly where its damage sits in comparison to our other glaives. Now, something to bring up, Surrounded. Surrounded is actually better this season because they've actually deprecated Surrounded spec into the trait itself, meaning you're going to get that full, like, what is it, 35% damage buff with Surrounded, and it will linger even once you get away from 3+ enemies. And then when we look at the enhanced version of Surrounded, the weapon actually gains improved bonus damage when more targets are in close proximity, so even more damage. So you can imagine Surrounded or Enhanced Surrounded plus Ambush, whatever that increase in damage is, or even Hake Breach armaments. I'm excited to try this one out. Now, as far as that first column of trait combinations, you've got things like Overflow, you've got Immovable Object. We're dealing range damage, grants substantially increased weapon energy while you're stationary with your shield raised. You can imagine like Immovable Object and Unstoppable Force together is an incredible combination. You also have Tilting at Windmills, which increases that movement speed after blocking damage. This is really good for closing that gap. A lot of great combinations here, guys. Overall, I think this is going to be a glaive you're going to want to go after, especially the craftable version. Next, we have Exalted Truth. This is actually the Trials of Osiris hand cannon, and it has been a while since we've gotten a Trials hand cannon. Now, like all trial weapons, it comes with the origin trait Alacrity, where you gain increased reload, stability, and aim assist, and range when you are the last living member of your fire team or running solo. This is really good on all weapons. This is going to be noticeably beneficial here on this 140. You also got One Quiet Moment, which, by the way, got a small buff this season where it now reactivates much faster after a final blow. Don't think anyone's going to use it still, but we'll see. Service Energy is also present on this gun, so if you're not going to be running solo, or if you don't expect to be the last member of your fire team in certain scenarios, Service Energy, of course, grants the weapon bonus handling and reduces incoming flinch after reloading. But let's look at the trait combinations, guys. Right off the bat, we've got Rangefinder and Eye of the Storm. I love consistent rolls like this. If you were to have the perfect roll, though, like Range Masterwork, Rangefinder, Akaraz Rounds, Hammer Forge with Eye of the Storm, you're actually looking at about 36 meters in range, which is definitely comparable to like the higher range hand cannons. Think Allstringer, Palindrome, hell, even Cantata. I think what's even more interesting, though, is normally Rangefinder is in the same column as like Kill Clip, so you can roll a damage perk like Kill Clip with Rangefinder and still have that level of reach. Granted, this is a 140 hand cannon, so it hits 70 damage per crit, and with a 25% buff here from Kill Clip, you'll be hitting somewhere around 87.5 per crit. So you'll still be able to hit that optimal TTK value of 0.87 seconds in one crit to body. So added forgiveness there, and I love that we can still keep that high range with Rangefinder. Now again, if you want to keep leaning into that consistency mark, you also have Encore, which gives you so many benefits when landing those final blows, from stability, range, accuracy, that in combination with Rangefinder. Hell, you can even do like an Encore killing wind roll. This does cut down your range a little bit, but man, every time you got a kill, can you imagine how amped this gun would get every single time? Perfect Float is also present on this weapon, but again, we're gonna have to actually test that trait to see if it's really useful or not. For PvE though, Frenzy, Outlaw, that's probably the combination I'm gonna go for. Our next weapon is the Ikelos hand cannon. This is one of the seasonal weapons, which means yes, we do have a weapon pattern for it, alongside the origin trait Rasputin's Arsenal. Breaking a target shield partially reloads this weapon's magazine. No lie, this origin trait could have been a lot better. I would have actually enjoyed it if Bungie leaned into Warmind sales a little more, considering these are all Warmind related weapons, but this hand cannon was actually a big favorite for many people. It's a 180 round per minute hand cannon in the precision frame archetype. It can roll Seraph rounds, and even though Seraph rounds did get a nerf to its range scaler, it still gives you +7 stability and +3 range. And the other major benefit to Seraph rounds is that it's supposed to be a combination of high caliber rounds and armor piercing rounds in one. Now, trait combinations on this thing that look really, really good. Keep in mind the max size here is pretty healthy, so I'm looking at Frenzy and Subsistence all day long, man. You also got Stats for All and One for All, and again, enhanced versions to all of these, so look for improved durations across the board. For PvP, you're not gonna really see anything here that's gonna be breaking the bank outside of maybe Golden Tricorn. If you can consistently proc Golden Tricorn, you'll easily be running around 3-tapping, and that's only like 1 stack of Golden Tricorn. At 2 stacks, technically you're supposed to be hitting upwards of like 90 damage per crit, so I would definitely lean into that more, whether it's Air Assault with Golden Tricorn or Rapid Hits with Golden Tricorn, and find you a very good neutral game void build for PvP. Now, if we suddenly find ourselves against a bunch of enemies that are shielded, and considering Rasputin's Arsenal is all about breaking target shields to partially reload the magazine, then obviously adaptive munitions here would synergize nicely. The weapon adapts its damage output and effectiveness against energy shields that don't match the weapon's damage type. And again, the enhanced version of this actually improves the damage. So don't overlook adaptive munitions. And again, it just depends on the enemies that we're going to be going against. I know Golden Tricorn, One for All, Frenzy, like these are all like flat damage buffs. But if we find ourselves against like multiple enemy types with multiple different shields, adaptive munitions, Rasputin's arsenal, I would love to actually see that synergy. Next, we have the Veles-X. This is a void energy pulse rifle and another aggressive burst pulse rifle. This is the ritual weapon for this season though. You can obtain this through Vanguard, Crucible, or Gambit playlists, and it actually has some pretty good static rolls on top of being a Hake weapon. You have the other origin traits including Vanguard Vindication, One Quiet Moment, and Gun and Run. Which, by the way, Gun and Run got a buff this season where they reduce the number of final blows needed to actually activate it. And again, the benefit here is rapidly defeating targets with this weapon grant bonus sprint speed. Now, the obvious trait combination, especially for PvP, is Tunnel Vision and Kill Clip all day long. Now that these perks are more consistent and more easily to proc on each other, this is great. If not that, and you are actually leaning into a void-based build, do that Repulsor Brace plus Golden Tricorn. Like if you're taking advantage of like scatter grenades with weaken, applying debuffs, defeating them, granting yourself an overshield, which is like what, an extra 45 health, and now you've got 50% damage buff on this thing. Holy hell. We're talking a single burst doing over 150 damage. One burst! So yeah, I really want to sit down and actually see how this weapon performs with the right build. My only complaint with most Hake weapons, especially pulse rifles in general, dude, they just feel slow. Handling on this thing is 23. You definitely want to load this out with something that's going to bump that handling up a little more. And on top of that, Chamber Compensator actually drops our handling down even less than that. So maybe you want to lean into a handling masterwork instead of bumping stability or your range. Moving on, we have Gunnora's Axe. This is a slug shotgun and has returned to us. It deals arc damage, and it too actually got a big change this past season alongside other shotguns, although not as much. Every other shotgun got their own reticle spread and pattern, whereas slug shotguns got an updated reticle to better represent its precision. By the way, if any Iron Bender packages have already dropped the new version of Gunnora's Axe, feel free to come by our Discord. I want to know. Now, this is also a Surus weapon. Granted, you're not going to be reloading that much inside of PvP with it, but it does reduce flinch, and I will say one of the main things that hurts slug shotguns is flinch. So you may actually really enjoy this, and that lasts for 6 seconds. But the trait combinations I would look for is, of course, opening shots with either a surplus or moving targets. Either one of those is really, really good. Just if you're going moving target, make sure you're rocking Quick Charge, which is a charge with light mod that increases your handling. You're gonna need it here. Now, you really don't have to go too crazy in the range department. You can rock like a handling masterwork, and barrel stat wise, you can be pretty flexible, especially if you're rocking opening shots. And if you're rocking something like Iron Reach, that just pretty much maxes out your range. You can pretty much use whatever you want after that. Granted, Iron Reach does substantially hurt that stability. And like I said just a second ago, flinch hurts on slug shotguns. And one of the #1 ways to mitigate flinch is stability, which is why I think surplus opening shot together is going to be the trait combination I'm going to go for. Now for PvE, Volt Shot all day long. Heck yeah. Volt Shot, surplus probably, those two together, get that increase in reload speed. You do have Vorpal that's present here, so you get that 15% increase in damage against bosses and mini bosses. So it really just comes down to you guys. If you're actually chaining kills, then obviously Volt Shot is very, very good. And if you're laying DPS into a target, then Vorpal. This is not first in, last out though. Like I wouldn't be looking at this shotgun as like my DPS shotgun. If I want to use it against champions, that's one thing. And you can even run and gun with Vorpal and auto-loading holster. Next, we have the Ikelos shotgun. Another seasonal weapon and a very popular weapon from back in the day, and actually one of the most consistent rapid fires in the game. Now, like other shotguns, rapid fires got an update in its pellet spread, and it has a square pellet spread as well as its reticle. Now, this is also a craftable weapon. It deals solar damage, and it also rolls incandescent, which is pretty nice. Other trait combinations include Swashbuckler and Grave Robber, which is a no-brainer. 1-2 Punch is also present here. Keep in mind though, 1-2 Punch actually got a nerf in this sandbox, essentially reducing the bonus melee damage. Kind of sucks here, but yeah, it happened. However, Surrounded is present on this gun, and like we just mentioned a second ago about Surrounded, since Surrounded spec was deprecated, I love this trait. You're already using a shotgun, you're going to be in close proximity to your enemies. Why not use Surrounded and either a threat detector together or even subsistence? Trench Barrel is also present on this gun. Granted, nobody's really jumping up to use Trench Barrel, but that of course was like the original weapon with Trench Barrel. If stop mechanics weren't so bad with champions, I would run over there and just melee the piss out of my enemy. Problem is like they can just stomp you right back. That's where like 1-2 Punch was so good. The damage, if you were rocking the right melee build, was so substantial that it would actually like stun the champion. For PvP though, I don't really know if I'm going to use this for PvP. It's not that you can't use it, it's just that it's not really a PvP shotgun. Everything here is definitely more gauged at PvE. I guess if I was rocking this with like Cascade Point and I was landing precision hits with like another weapon and I could proc Cascade Point easily, considering this is a rapid fire frame, maybe you can like immediately shoot both shots as a 140 round per minute shotgun. Depending on how much that amps that up, you can just blow your load on a target and be done with them. Next on our list is Fiora Tura. I have no idea if I said that right. This is a Suros rapid rapid fire frame sidearm. It does void damage. It drops from the gunsmith. And listen, sidearms have been consistently getting better every single season. Now they have more competition this season because with the shotgun reworks, shotguns are more consistent. But these little rapid fire frame sidearms are so fast, man. They pepper the piss out of enemies. And this one has tunnel vision and kill clip together, which is a great combination. You also have moving target on this thing. You can rock moving target and threat detector, both of which will be proccing amongst your enemies. Zim moments for my controller players. I think that's really, really good. Now I think that for the most part, the sidearm is very consistent all on its own. But if you just want more, by all means, rock Zim moments. And it just got a buff this past season as it no longer deactivates on a miss. It has a 1-second timer. So it's only gotten better. You can do a Zim moment kill clip roll. Just make sure you're rocking sidearm reloaders so you can get that faster reload. For PvE though, you do have golden tricorn, but that's about it. Other than that, nothing really helping you in that first column. Maybe threat detector for PvE, but nothing really that crazy, right? I think for PvP though, guys, being a Sura sidearm, mitigating that flinch, the only real limitation this weapon is going to have for you is of course its range, which is pretty substantial. It's a 12 zoom sidearm. You're looking at a best range of like 15.5 meters. It's not the best, but anything within that 15-meter range, I feel like this little thing is going to shred. Next, we have Ablruna-D. This is an arc energy sniper rifle in the aggressive frame archetype. Now you can tell by its gun model, we've seen this before. This is also a Hake weapon, so you have Hake breach armaments, and you receive this weapon from the Gambit playlist. Now, I know most of us don't really want to jump up to play Gambits. However, I kind of like this one, man. I actually think it might be good. We've got a zoom of only 45. We've got combinations like snapshot and moving target. And the question I have is with Hake breach armaments, can I use this to combat Titans? Perhaps. But without a doubt, that snapshot moving target roll is always a fantastic one to have on your sniper. You also have opening shot on this thing. High impact reserves is also present on this. And back in the day, we used to run around with an aggressive frame sniper rifle and one-shot body shot with high impact reserves with things like empowering rifts or way back when Sun Warrior. Not really something you can do anymore, but on low resilience guardians, you can run around one-shot body shotting with harmony. Now for PvE, there's so many good trait combinations. You've got firing line, triple tap, clown cartridge, vorpal, cascade point, which again, we really need to test out cascade point to see how it performs. But using this would say something like triple tap and a magazine boosting perk could be really, really good depending on how fast that rate of fire increase actually is. Next on our list is the Ikelos sniper rifle. Now the Ikelos sniper rifle is on the opposite spectrum. It's in the rapid fire frame archetype. It comes with the origin trait Rasputin's Arsenal. And yes, this is one of the seasonal weapons, meaning it's craftable and all of these perks can be enhanced. Now the Ikelos sniper rifle way back when was actually one of the most coveted snipers in the game. Never really for PvP, but for PvE, a lot of people really wanted this sniper. I don't really like rapid fires currently, and there's really nothing here that's standing out for me for PvE. You've got box breathing, you've got focus fury, 4 times the charm, overflow is also present on this gun. I just don't feel that crazy about it. Now for PvP, high impact reserves does allow rapid fires to kill in 2 body shots. And again, that was like the nerf that rapid fires got way back when everyone was using Twilight Oath. You were literally able to use sniper rifles like a scout rifle, or at least these rapid fires. Granted, the zoom on this thing is 45, whereas the zoom on Twilight Oath is 35. So that's why you're able to use Twilight Oath like a super long range scout rifle, at least back in the day. Granted, you don't have high impact reserves on Twilight Oath. So there is some use here between high impact reserves. You can pair it with either perpetual motion or even surplus. Maybe, just maybe, you could utilize this inside of PvP. Next, we have the Ikelos SMG. Dude, this is like the SMG that has eluded me, or at least the God roll has eluded me for like ever. This is also one of the seasonal weapons. Every perk on here can be enhanced, and it comes with Rasputin's Arsenal as well. This is an SMG that's both good for both PvE and for PvP. You got rangefinder, you got dynamic sway, you've got Seraph rounds or Accuras rounds, whichever one you want to go with. Granted, I'm kind of leaning still more towards Seraph rounds. With the right rolls though, you've got an SMG that can reach up to almost 25 meters. By the way, this is an aggressive frame. That's pretty impressive. Now, if you didn't want to roll rangefinder, you can go tap the trigger. You could just make this weapon super consistent. I love pairing this SMG up with sniper rifles. And you don't have to rock dynamic sway. You can use perpetual motion, or hell, even rock something like killing wind if you're looking to just main this SMG. Now for PvE, Surrounded looks really good, and like Surrounded, Feeding Frenzy, both of those combinations is very good. But you also have Volt Shot present on this weapon. Now enhanced Volt Shot actually gives you an improved period of time where reloading after getting killed overcharges the weapon, so more ease of use. Would you want to use this over Surrounded? Maybe. Again though, Surrounded is doing so much better with Surrounded spec being deprecated into it. I really think it's going to be a top tier perk this season. You also have Frenzy, and enhanced Frenzy allows the weapon perk to persist. Shoot to loot is also present on this gun, guys. Lots of great combinations here. This was a force to be reckoned with in the past, and it's definitely going to be equally as lethal here now. Next, we have the Path of Least Resistance. This is an arc energy trace rifle, and it's part of the seasonal seasonal weapons, and it's got a host of different trait combinations that can roll enhance. Now, personally, I really don't care for trace rifles inside of PvP. I know way back in the day, Wave Splitter and Prometheus Lens were like the meta. We've definitely moved away from that. So in my opinion, I look at these weapons more for PvE. But this does have Ambush, which is that origin trait that increases damage against combatants during the opening moments of an engagement. You can combine that with Volt Shot, which is a pretty good combination considering you've got the increased damage at the front end, and then after you reload, Volt Shot is now going to increase the damage after that. You also have 1 for all and Stats for all, 1 for all subsistence, which is really good. And if you absolutely want to try this out in PvP, Dynamic Sway, tap the trigger, that's a really good combination. Like, I don't know if we have a single trace rifle with Dynamic Sway. I'm trying to think right now. I'm pretty sure this is the first trace rifle with Dynamic Sway. And on top of that, you can get Enhanced Dynamic Sway, which rapidly improves that accuracy and stability when holding down the trigger. So you can imagine having something like this. You can even pair that with Volt Shot if you're looking to get more damage inside of PvP, or even tap the trigger. Harmony is also present on this weapon. So if you're pairing this with another weapon, dude, nobody's expecting you to swap to your trace rifle to suddenly be melting them with that 20% increase there in damage. So even though I don't really like using trace rifles inside of PvP, this one actually may be a good one to use. Our next weapon is Wendigo. That's right, guys. Wendigo has returned to us, and this is a great season to be using grenade launchers. Now, Wendigo is actually going to be a Nightfall weapon. So of course, we're going to have an adept version of Wendigo, which I'm very excited to go after. And with Breach and Clear this season, this is a great opportunity for you guys to get you a solid GL. Trait combinations on this thing includes Full Court, which like used to be the meta back in the day. Chain Reaction is also on this thing. You've got Field Prep, Golden Tricorn, Explosive Light, which I think Explosive Light is still the play. And by the way, the enhanced version of Explosive Light actually just got a buff where you can hold 7 instead of 6. Granted, you can't craft Wendigo, but still, I think Explosive Light, combine that with Chain Reaction, you're looking at some mega explosions with some substantial damage. And there's so many ways to provide yourself heavy ammo this season with Lucent Finisher. Between Lucent, Breach, and Clear, guys, break out those GLs, man. Wendigo is set for success. Now, I want you to actually consider this grenade launcher for PvP as well. And I'm looking at Impulse Amplifier and Full Court together. I think that can actually be really, really good. Just immediately get that damage off with proxy. It'll be like mini rocket launchers with that increased projectile velocity. Overall, guys, this is definitely going to be a GL you're going to want to get. Be looking out for this thing whenever it's in rotation for Grandmaster Nightfalls. Next, we have Fire and Forget. This is a stasis linear infusion rifle, and it's an aggressive frame. That's right, guys. It's a 3-round burst linear infusion, which we don't have many of. On top of that, it is a seasonal weapon, so it is craftable. It's also a Vice weapon. So for DPS phases, that auto reload feature is very nice. Granted though, in comparison to other linears with Vice Stinger, we don't have triple tap, we don't have 4 times the charm. Those are the perk that really allows us to constantly keep returning back and proccing Vice Stinger as it produces ammo. So you're not really getting a DPS monster here, at least from my observation. That doesn't mean that it can't do well against champions and just dealing with immediate burst damage, but you're gonna probably lean more into ambush and that increase in damage on that opening engagement. Now, interestingly enough, you could do like ambush and Vorpal together, or maybe even ambush and chill clip together. You also have high impact reserves, so maybe ambush increases the damage on the front end, and as you get deeper into the magazine, high impact reserves is increasing it on the back end. Frenzy is also present on this thing with Field Prep. Those would be good combinations. And arguably the most interesting combination is Headstone and Chill Clip. Like, what the hell? Those two together? What happens? One slowing on direct hits, the other is spawning stasis crystals on precision final blows? I want to know, man. On top of that, you can get enhanced versions of all of these traits. So I'm very interested in seeing how this linear performs. Hopefully RNG will treat us well and we can get it soon. The next weapon on our list is Avalanche. This is actually the Dawning Machine Gun. So just like the other Dawning weapons, it also comes with the origin trait Dawning Surprise. But simultaneously, it's a Surus weapon, where reloading grants the weapon bonus handling and reduces incoming flinch for a short time. Now, it deals solar damage and is also part of the adaptive frame archetype, but notice it has incandescent. And not just incandescent, you can roll incandescent with subsistence. So you can imagine just literally just like spraying into a group of enemies. Incandescent is causing scorch, ignitions, explosions, everything's dying. Subsistence is constantly proccing. You'll probably run out of ammo pretty quickly, but hell, at least for the moment, it'll be beautiful. Now, it also comes with target lock. So perhaps this perk with dynamic sway may be decent for maintaining shots on a single target, simply because dynamic sway is going to help you with that accuracy. Not that adapters are that difficult to like maintain accuracy with, but target lock, you're definitely going to want to remain on target and landing as many precision hits as possible. Outside of that, you can can just run and gun with like auto-loading holster, incandescent, literally just swap over to your weapon, let it auto-reload, swap back, and continue to go full Scorch Earth. Next, we have the Retrofit Escapade. This is a rapid-fire frame machine gun. It is a seasonal weapon, so of course, it is craftable. It comes with both ambush and Sura synergy. And similar to the machine gun we looked at just a second ago, you've got target lock, which again, for sustained damage might actually be good. Now, the enhanced version actually states that damage increases by an improved amount the longer this weapon remains on a target. So again, we'll have to just test it and see, guys. I personally don't really care for rapid fires inside of PvP. I run out of ammo way too fast. But for PvE, yeah, man, one for all, stats for all, golden tricorn, field prep, 4 times the charm is also on this thing, frenzy. Pretty decent combinations here, guys. It's a void machine gun, so lean into void 3.0, rock some grenade builds, rep that golden tricorn. You'll be dealing lots of damage. And if you're looking just for like easy damage, obviously one for all is super easy to proc on a machine gun, especially a rapid fire. Next, we have the Unwavering Duty. Another machine gun, except this is actually the Trials machine gun. Now, normally I don't really get too carried away with heavy weapons inside of PvP, but considering comp, dude, heavy is viably important. Like locking down an area, especially like in rifts, we're like locking down middle and pushing. The stalemate breaker is actually heavy ammo spawning. There's some great combinations though on this thing. Dynamic sway, tap the trigger. That's probably going to be the option I'm going to go for PvP. But for PvE, this solar machine gun can roll incandescent. It can roll subsistence. It's got killing tally, ambitious assassin, field prep, firing line is also present on this gun. My only complaint is its gun model, which we've seen multiple times, Bungie. Come on. Our next weapon on this list is Blowout. This is the crucible weapon for this season, and it's got a number of trait combinations, guys. It's an adaptive frame rocket launcher, but you've got lasting impression, impulse amplifier, tracking on this thing, explosive payload, chain reaction, danger zone. I would definitely get an impact casing roll with like explosive payload and probably tracking. Like you don't realize how badly you need tracking until you're like doing the light blade strike and you're like, holy hell, I need tracking right now. Big time. Again, not a craftable weapon, but still looks to be a very good one. You also have disruption break, which is an interesting one. I don't think we're ever going to get anti-barrier rocket launcher, but if we did, looky there. You've got disruption break, pair it with a heavy hitting kinetic and go to Pound Town. Now, our final weapon on this list is Zephyr. This is actually the Dawning Sword. We've seen this in the past, and it's the only weapon, at least to my knowledge, that can roll with Cold Steel, which states that power sword hits apply slow stacks. Now, Cold Steel did get a buff this past season, but only the enhanced version of Cold Steel. Now, I actually find this to be kind of hilarious because there is no weapon with enhanced Cold Steel, Bungie. So what the hell? However, you do have chain reaction, which is very nice. I actually want to see how this works with a stasis sword of all things, right? And for your damage dealing perks, I think Surrounded is going to be the play for me, guys. I'm just saying, man. I know I've been like really talking highly of Surrounded, but I want that Surrounded Relentless Strike combo, man. Or like Surrounded Tireless Blade. Well, guys, those are all your random rolls for Season of the Seraph. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, a like is very much appreciated. These take so long, but we do them every season. And I'm not going to lie, guys, I dread them every season, but we still do them. So again, if you enjoyed this video, please like, please share. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe and hang around. We cover everything in Destiny. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.